man, there's so many things going on with the way that you navigated so many of those different situations, and I'm just wondering, did you settle on kind of a philosophy of communication and collaboration? Is there something that you're just like, this is what we have to do in order to do this well, whatever the situation is, and whatever the context is?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think the first thing I determined as a leader, you cannot be the go-between.
Okay.
In conflict resolution.
Okay, please talk about that a little bit, because we know that's a natural part of working together and just being people. It's going to happen.
It is, and usually for maybe a silly reason or a misinterpreted reason, and then communication shuts down, right?
Right.
And people just want to go to their corner. I'm going to play over here. If they need to know something, I'll tell my boss, who then can tell them. And I just don't operate like that. And my people that work directly for me figured that out pretty fast, that, hey, if you tell me something that you have an issue with somebody, I'm going to say, go tell them.
Good. Yeah.
Because I can't tell them. Because if I tell them, they're going to say they're tattling on me, and it's just going to deepen that divide.
Right.
Go talk to them.
Yeah.
And in most cases, it's just the slightest of misunderstandings or misinterpretations of intentions, and you can get it over with in a hurry. But yeah, I had several people would say, man, you always just made me go talk to them.
Yeah, that's so good, because I mean it's you mentoring the people underneath you into the social skills needed that fit emotional intelligence, to learn how to work together. Y'all figure it out. You need it.
That's right. And you don't show up to work to try to make somebody's world miserable,
right?
Or to do a bad job.
Right.
So just talk it through, and you're going to figure out why they were behaving the way they were, and why they're doing what they're doing, and you'll learn something from that. A funny story, when we were first getting going on Quext, Dave Marcinkowski had this idea of a smart door, and he was trying to solve a problem of connectivity, and we got a group together, and we said, well, we got a few problems with this. The door is going to weigh 600 pounds, and it's going to be very expensive. There's got to be a better way to do this, and that's where the smart thermostat hub idea came. But we didn't dismiss what David said. In fact, we wanted to give him a better idea than what he had.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he originally said, I know this is right. We're going to build a door. And that's just it. And he came in the next morning and said, I thought about it. You guys are right. Kudos to him.
Yeah.
But you do have to have that direct conversation and nip it in the bud. If you sense that there's some animosity, get to the heart of it.
Yeah.
Just dive into it. Just trust your teammate is a good teammate. They're not doing it for ill intentions. And you'll figure out why they have either the demeanor that they have or the thought that they have. And they might have just had a bad day.
Yeah, and the truest form of social skills, especially in conflict management, and I like what you said, is the ultimate goal is to win the teammate, to win the person, not the argument.
I think Bridget said that in Self-Regulation, and she's exactly right. And
Yeah.
any book you pick up on it will say the same thing. And it's so true.
Yeah.
If you win that battle, but you've lost that teammate,
That's right.
gosh, it's somewhat, you can't calculate what that cost is.
Yeah.
Because now you're never, I used to tell people around, that would listen around me, be nice. It's okay. And by the way, it takes a lot of people wanting you to be successful for you to become successful.
That's right.
You can't do it alone.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but if you're arrogant, selfish, I'm probably not going to go out of my way to help you be successful.
Right.
You might be successful. There are plenty of examples of people like that have success. But for the majority of us that aren't uber smart and just have an idea off the charts, you're going to need a lot of people to help you to become successful.
Yep.
So how do how do you get people to want to help you? Well, one thing is you can be nice.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah, I have another question that kind of fits into some of those categories we talked about in the social skills podcast, because I think this is an important one. You mentioned something earlier about influence and how it's not deceptive and it's not ill-motivated, but it's just influence, it's persuasiveness, it's really trying to help people do something. Talk about how you navigate real influence and not that mean-spirited like manipulation.
Yeah, and usually it's not mean-spirited, it's more self-serving.
There you go. That's better. Yeah.
And so, first of all, you want to avoid that, because if you influence somebody to do something that just benefits you or is perceived to just benefit you, they won't help you again.
Right.
You have now lost them as an advocate again. But true influence, early in my career, this whole emotional intelligence was the fluffy stuff, right? It didn't matter. You had to be a subject matter expert on whatever. Yeah. And you still have to go do your homework.
Absolutely.
You cannot go into it just saying, I'm going to just be flowery and we'll see what happens. You have to at least understand what's being discussed and be able to participate. But then it's giving your point of view in a non-threatening way, listening to feedback, representing if you still feel like you're correct. But somewhere in the middle is where the answer always lies. Mm-hmm. That you've missed something, you've got a blind spot, or you just aren't aware of something, or you've got a bias that you just don't know about. But just having those discussions, and you will figure out the right answer. And in most cases, you're probably 90% of the way there. So you're just looking for that last 10%. But you may have moved someone else dramatically from their perspective.
Well, I love that. I love that you paired the understanding of influence with self-awareness and the constant reflection upon what you're doing, because I think that is so valuable, that we have great people in these companies that we're getting a chance to work with, and I hope they have great influence, but I also hope they can humbly take a step back and go, let me check my bias, or let me check my what I'm doing here or there, or what I don't know. I love that.
I want to go back to empathy a little bit,
please,
too, because
please.
I do think if it's probably the most endearing of qualities that you can have as a leader, and I say that in that when you look back at history, I know you're a history buff as well, and I am as well, because I think it teaches you a lot about what not to do, but also what to do if you're really looking for it. So, Abraham Lincoln pardoned a ton of people, right? And he was president during the Civil War, and he pardoned a lot of people that defected. And his generals at the time said, President, you can't do that.
Right.
We are going to have a mutiny. We're going to have a mass exodus. People will know they can get away with it, and they'll do it. He only pardoned like 100 people. But when they measured the troops' loyalty, he had the most loyal troops of anyone. Yeah. Because people saw him, that he would look at each individual circumstance and make a judgment on that. Yeah. Versus, I've got to treat everyone the same.
Right.
It's not the case.
Yeah.
HR law does not say you have to treat everyone the same. Yeah. It says you have to treat everyone fairly.
Yes.
And so this is something that I've mentored a lot of people on, and Rodney Cates has mentored me on, and we've had a lot of discussions, because HR is a lot of gray. It's not black and white. And how do you treat people individually and not set a precedent?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to set the precedent that I'm going to look at everything individually. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to look at the person's body of work, how engaged they are, how good of a teammate they are, and that factors into what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Rodney and I went through a scenario in our cable days, and I'll just throw it out there because I think it's probably one of the things I'm most proud of. We had a technician that he was a skilled technician, but just a super teammate. And of the at the time probably 4,000 employees, I knew him because he was that personality in every team meeting that I went there and spoke. Just a jubilant guy. Galen was his name. Well, he was working one day and loading his truck, and he bent down and he twisted, and so caused some pain in his back. It was just before lunch, so he said, a supervisor said, "Hey, we need to write this up. It's an incident at work, and you have to write those up because you want those documented in case there's things." And he said, "No, I'm going to go home for lunch because I always go home for lunch, and then I'll see how I feel after lunch." He goes home for lunch. It's hurting him. He goes to the medicine cabinet, and there's Tylenol 3 in there. It's under his wife's name, but he takes Tylenol 3. Goes back to work, not feeling any better. He goes to his supervisor. "I think I need to report this." Well, they report it. Well, in that world, any incident, you're automatically drug tested in that world. So I know it, but not everybody knows it.
That's right.
Tylenol 3 contains codeine.
Yep.
So here we have a great employee, does everything right, makes what I would say a pretty understandable mistake.
Yes.
So I'm not involved at this point. Corporate HR is involved, and they're saying you have to terminate, failed drug test. His boss's boss contacts me and said, "Hey, we've got this guy." And I said, "Who is it?" And it didn't matter that I knew him, but I did know him.
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, I want his supervisor. I want the manager and you to all write why we should make an exception here, and what would you recommend we do?" And well, don't terminate him. He's a great employee.
Right.
We can't replace him. And he made a mistake. And so to a person, they all were like, fabulous person. And even some of his counterparts or peers were lobbying as well. And so at the time, we were setting a drug testing policy at our school district, which we were trying to prevent a kid from making a bad choice. So give them a reason not to. And it wasn't to exclude people or to get people dismissed off teams. It was, hey, I want to give that kid that has the peer pressure coming on them a reason to say, no, I can't. I'm in this sport or I'm in this activity and I can't.
Yeah.
But anyway, so corporate HR was just like, nope, can't do it. And I said, listen, what if we set up a situation where he voluntarily drug tests every month on his dime, and we don't pay for it, but if he fails one, then we terminate. But I honestly believe it was an honest mistake, not going to happen again, and I want to take the risk for this. So we got them to agree to the procedure, and of course he passed every one.
Yeah.
He didn't have an issue, but it would have been easy just to say that's the policy.
Yep.
That's not what you should do as a leader.
Yeah.
Again, and I commend his leadership that said, I'm raising my hand. This doesn't feel right. I still get a LinkedIn message from Galen every anniversary of him being reinstated.
Yeah.
So that's,
yeah.
And I had Rodney's support with that. And, we eventually got the corporate comfortable that, okay, you are setting a precedent, but it's a precedent we probably should be setting.
Right. Yeah. That's that's a great story. And I love the way in which, whether it's HR or even just the way that you take care of people and to get all of us to understand, like, it's the uniqueness of the person that you have with you. It's the context, and you know people, you learn people, you wrestle with what they're going through and find ways to try to make them successful, and if they fail, they fail. And I love that. You've mentioned leadership a couple different times in that story and over the last little bit. When you think management versus leadership, how do you differentiate the two? Because neither one are bad, but they're also not the same. You can be a manager and not necessarily a leader, I think, in some cases, although it'd be awesome if our managers were all leaders, right? And we would want that for them. But I don't know, how do you differentiate the two of those
I would say some of the best leaders don't have a title.
Yes.
I like to use the term, lead where you are. Whatever scenario you're in, title or no title, be a leader. And that is, what does the team need? What can I provide? And how do we get it done?
Yeah.
A manager is more of, we need to get this task done, and so I'm gonna measure that we get it done. And there are measurements certainly that you need, and I would say when a manager's measuring something, it's usually for punitive. When a leader's measuring, it's usually a scoreboard.
Yeah.
And you
like that.
You want the scoreboard because you want to be able to celebrate with your team.
Right.
And without a scoreboard, it's like, well, I think we won.
Yeah.
Did we win?
Yeah.
It's hard to celebrate if there's no defined victory.
Yeah.
And without the scoreboard, there isn't. So
and then the punitive piece also makes it more about the task and far less about the people.
Absolutely, because again, the scoreboard, you can get a victory in a number of different ways. And most times you have to find another way because a budget or what have you, it's incorrect the day you publish it. And as things hit you, you've got to figure out, we've got to pivot somewhere. What are we going to do? We've got this hitting us. We've got labor costs going up. We've got property tax going up. We've got this. We do have an offset over here. Rent's going up, but it's not enough. What else can we do? So it's how do you make those adjustments?
Yeah, and management is necessary to do it well. But you're right. There's that people-centric side of leadership that has to be a part of that.
And not everyone is wants to be a leader.
True.
And that's fine too.
Agreed.
And organizations need to be okay with that as well. Understand where people are comfortable, where they're best suited for their inner self. Like I said, when I was at odds with my inner self, I knew there was no way I was going to be successful, because even if I was successful at whatever the measurement was, I wasn't going to be successul because I was going to be miserable.
Yes, which rolls right back into self-awareness, motivation, all of those types of things. I appreciate you making that connection. All right, last question. This is the one we've done it every single time, right? Every single time we've had this interview, these types of interviews, we've done this question. What are a few things, if you could go back and tell young Dave, do it this way, here's some insights, for those of us in our companies who are maybe in our 20s or 30s and just starting out in our careers and finding our way in these industries that our companies are in, what advice now would you say, I wish I'd have known this then?
Well, I was fortunate to learn a lot of things early. I think I did. I would say don't sweat or stress the small things as much as I did early. And stay on the mission. I was told several times in my career, you're too nice. Nice people don't finish first. So I've kind of been on a mission to prove that theory is incorrect. I love the fact that academics are starting to agree that you need this. That wasn't the case when I started my professional career in 1989. It was far from anybody talking about it. But yet, I would always reflect back to which coach did I react to. Had a football coach, highly successful. But did he even know me? I questioned that every day, and he was a yeller, a screamer, and we performed, but man, I didn't respect him. And certainly when practice was over, I was done.
Yeah.
Flip it to a baseball coach that I had. He would hit me ground balls till 9 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which do you want to be?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's excellent. I thank you so much for kind of sharing that. Again, thank you so much for doing this. This is kind of a wrap for season 3, but we'll have more stuff and we'll be putting more things out and really trying to celebrate.
Have you been renewed for another year?
I don't know. We'll figure that out.
We got to talk at the studio.
I'm going to figure it out. So Madera friends, thank you guys for joining us. Thanks again to Dave, and we'll have some more content for you, more stories as soon as we can get it to you. Thanks a lot.